Chinese and Indian citizens buying physical gold. Hi, everyone, and welcome to Ainsley Insights, brought to you by Ainsley Bullion, Ainsley Crypto, and the Gold and Silver Standard as the Ainsley Group celebrates 50 years. Today, we welcome back Sam, who has been away for the last couple of weeks. So, welcome back, firstly. And he's been doing a bit of a deep dive into the recent ANZ report into which citizens around the world have been buying physical gold. How are you going today, Sam?
Good, Chris. How have you been?
Yeah, good. We missed you the last couple of weeks, but you're back today and you've been looking at some really interesting data out of that ANZ report. Do you want to start us off by telling us what you found?
Yeah, so the main finding of the report was covering that even though the price is going up, the buying has been sustained in gold. So they're looking at essentially how, although the price has risen so much, people haven't stopped buying. It's been very, very steady.
Hmm.
In a lot of places, it's been the same as pre-COVID levels, and that's quite surprising to them because as they would have probably assumed, the price increasing so much would make it a lot more difficult for people to buy the same volume of gold as before.
That's quite interesting because, like, anecdotally, I would sort of say the same as the bank there, which is unusual in some ways. But I would find that people would be struggling to buy because of the price being higher. But is it a case of where that's actually happening? Because you seem to identify that there were specific places where that buying was occurring.
Well, they identify China and India as the unique markets that have been the most persistent. India had a very, very slight dip, but has maintained almost the same level of buying, and China has increased 16% year on year, as far as 2023 is concerned. So now these are cultures where it's ingrained, very deeply, that gold is a way to be independent from the state. Gold is a way to preserve wealth
Hmm.
across generations, family wealth, and it's probably a very difficult thing for the banking industrial complex to try to change them and get them more interested in things like stocks and more interested in things like paper, digital currencies, which can be centrally controlled. Because if you look at these civilizations, they've seen governments come and go, empires come and go, and currencies come and go. So it's very deeply ingrained that gold is the way to go if you want to preserve value in it. It seems like that's something that this ANZ report didn't really touch on.
And that's really an interesting point I hadn't really thought about in those terms before. This idea of culture that expands. I mean, you talk about very old civilizations there that do have that embedded history over thousands of years, really, of looking at something like gold as all the things you mentioned, that store of value, all of those things. So, do you think that that's something that um, is maybe not as prevalent here in the West as in younger cultures that don't really have that history and haven't really been through those really long periods of their history where they needed to rely on something like gold?
I think that's definitely true. And it's always funny, some investors ask me, why do you have gold? Why didn't you have real money? And how preposterous that sounds to a gold investor. Why don't you have real money? Why do
Yeah.
you have gold? Whereas, talking to someone with a background from India or from China, that's the only real money.
Mm.
Gold is real money. Everything else is just some temporary confetti that a government's playing with until it disappears. So, very, very different mentalities. But if you look at the price of gold in AUD, that might be changing. We might be catching up to China and India of our perception of gold as money, because it's quite clear that it's continuously reaching all-time highs.
So do you think, and from what you found in the report, do you think that trend continues then? Do we see, um, like you're highlighting this idea about the Aussie dollar and the valuation of currency? Is that what drives the trend to continue from what you found?
Well, look, according to the ANZ report, they don't think the trend is going to continue, which I find kind of ironic because what they've covered is they've said that, as a store of value, as a preservation of wealth, the markets such as India and China have been buying gold. And then when asked about it continuing, they say, well, the price, it's sensitive to price. So the price has gone up a lot. So that means it might not continue. The thing is, though, it's not really the price of gold that's going up. It's the currency value that's going down. And the reason, which they admitted themselves, is people are trying to escape the devaluation of fiat currency. They're trying to preserve their wealth. So the price of gold going up, aka the price of currency going down, should be all the more reason for them to buy even more gold. If the gold price was steady, there would be no reason to buy it. But if it's continuously going up, that means the currency is devaluing. So there's much, much less reason to hold on to the currency. So I think their argument is actually the exact opposite of the reality. And also by them saying that the price of gold has gone up and talking about, the price coming back down or stabilizing, because they're measuring it against a fiat currency, what they're implying as a bank is that fiat currency is stable and that it's a, it's a good reference point. That's fundamentally not true. That's the exact
it makes sense from
opposite.
their angle, doesn't it? Because obviously, particularly remembering the source of this is coming from a bank making those statements, it makes sense. But I really like that point that you're making. If the argument is that the trend is not going to continue, really the evidence to support that should be factors or coming into place that are going to stop this devaluation of currency going on in the background. And I assume they didn't provide any evidence of that.
No, well, all you have to do is look at the chart of gold and the Australian dollar. If you look at how the Australian dollar is performing against gold, inversely, it's lost 70% of its value, 77% across the last 17 years. So still waiting for that bounce, ANZ. Still waiting for the stable currency to correct and come back, and for gold to go back to being $800 an ounce, but it hasn't happened. So why, when gold went from $800 an ounce to 900, why didn't it come back? And then to 1,000, then 1,500, now 3,000 something. So still hasn't come back. Well, that's because the currency is not stable. It's not a good thing to measure against.
Makes so much sense. Well, lots of useful information in there. It's a good example actually where we can take a report from a bank that may not be telling us exactly the right information, but we can still take useful parts from that to understand what's actually going on in the world. So really valuable, I think.
Thanks a lot, Chris.
Thanks everyone for watching. We'll chat again soon.